Welcome to Literally Books, the podcast where we read literally anything because it shouldn't be a saga to find your next favorite read. My name is Magda.
And I'm Lindsay.
And today we have special guest Kayla Ruhland, who is the author of the Unofficial Twilight Saga Cookbook, and can't wait to talk more about this. But before we get into that, Lindsay, what have you been reading?
I just finished Atmosphere by Jenkins Reid.
Ooh, thoughts?
Here is my thing. I have a bias against Jenkins Reid, and I don't know why. Like I read Daisy Jones and the Six. I read Evelyn Hugo. I read The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I read Malibu Rising. I enjoy every single one of her books that I've read, but something in my brain is like, but they're like popcorn books, you know? Like I am a little like judgy, fudgy about it. I don't know. And so I went in this with like a little like, meh, whatever, like it'll just be my beach read book. I finished it in my bed last night after an event that you and I went to, crying, sobbing in my bed, like literally next to my husband, scrunched up in a ball, like, like trying to, it was so good. I really loved it.
So it changed your mind, or you think you're still going to remember the bias for her next book and potentially go into that mindset?
Oh, I'm totally going to go to the bias in the next book. But I think she's starting to, I think her writing is getting better and better with every book. Like her stories, I think why I like have a bias towards them is they like read more like screenplay pitches to me or something, less like literary books or something that's like meant for the book. They all feel like they're in preparation to be adapted for television. And there's something about that just like doesn't hit me the right way. But this story in particular, it's basically a love story that takes place between two astronauts who work for NASA in the 1980s, and they're navigating this lesbian relationship kind of in secret. It's just this like very beautiful human tale about love, and then in the backdrop of like, you know, space, it's exciting. So I don't know, it's just really good.
I love that though. I think that kind of reminds me a little bit for All Mankind, because there is a story in there for, you know, a woman that is in love with another woman, and it's just so frowned upon, and it's so sad within the whole context, and it's probably gonna get me in my feels then.
What are you reading?
So I'm also in a weird kind of reading slump. So the only book that I finished this past week, it was Love Story by Lindsey Kelk, which is a little bit of a romance book, of course. That's just, if I'm in a reading slump, I just need something easy that is just gonna go down and just give me my brain palate cleanser that I need. It was such a beautiful story. I think we went to one of the book events for this book and we had it on our bookshelves, and I hadn't read it yet, but it was what I needed for the week, I think. The story follows this writer who is actually like a secret writer. She has a pen name and she writes like smutty romance books, and she's like one of the highest best-selling authors, but nobody knows who her real, like who she is really. And the reason for that is because she comes from like a family that they just are like literary, like royalty. Like they look down upon the romance genre. So it's just kind of her trying to navigate those dynamics. There's a guy that's kind of trying to help her out, but he comes across a little bit smug towards the beginning, but he does redeem himself. And then the whole book takes place over the course of a weekend where they're celebrating her father's birthday. And it is just like things that are going to go wrong, but they just make it fun and interesting for the writer. I really enjoyed it. I am starting to feel like I really enjoy a book that kind of deals a lot with the publishing and writing world. Like those are some of the books that like have really like just gripped me, and I really love this story here. My one and only gripe, and I think I mentioned this in my book review, is that I wish it had an epilogue, because again, the story takes place in the course over a weekend, and I think I just wanted to know more to see if I could root for the couple and see if they were actually gonna make it long term or not. But other than that, it was just a nice, lovely story, like just kind of what I needed for my weird brain era.
I'm the exact same way. There are so many books where I'm like, give me 5 years from now, please and thank you. I need it. Like, I need my Hunger Games wrap up or something. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Like,
yeah, exactly. All right, you want to take a little bit of a break?
Let's do it.
Welcome back, everybody. So now we're going to be talking to the amazing Kayla Ruhland, who is the author of the Unofficial Twilight Saga Cookbook. She has been reading, watching, and loving the world of Twilight Saga since she was 12 years old. She saw the first movie in theaters 11 times and celebrated her 25th birthday with a Twilight-themed birthday party. As self-proclaimed Twilight aficionado, she knows exactly what the fandom loves. She resides in LA with her husband and her dogs. Welcome to the show, Kayla. Yay!
Hi, I'm so excited to be here.
We're so excited to have you, and I appreciate so much your dedication to this fandom. I had seen that your Twilight themed birthday, which, as someone who strongly believes that all parties should be themed, I greatly appreciate that, but I'd missed the 11 movie theater visits.
Yeah, I think that my family and friends wish that they missed that too, honestly. But I love that. I totally agree. I think themed birthdays are a must. And that has always been my goal every single year for my birthdays. But it was for a while a bit interrupted because of, pandemic, like all that kind of stuff. But it was really cool to be able to do like an outdoor themed Twilight birthday party. I couldn't believe I hadn't done it before. 11 times in the theater, you would think, but I had just at I had just turned 12 before I started reading. And then when I was 13, I was like, well, I have to be like more mature. Like this needs to be a teenage party. We've got to keep your kind of like nerdier interests in the shadows. And then, by the time I was 25, I was like, no more. No more in the shadows. It's
I
time to
love that
celebrate this. This is
arc.
fun.
You gotta embrace it. Did you?
Exactly.
I have been seeing a lot of things like, oh, things that you didn't catch that are in the background when you're watching Twilight, and there were so many things that I totally missed because you've seen it so many times in a row. Did you catch a lot of the things like there's like the hacky sack thing where they don't have like a hacky sack, Emmett in the table playing with like a banana or something, and these are things that just went way over my head. Did you catch all of that when you like watched it 11 times?
Well, see, this is the thing. I love rewatching these movies for many reasons, but one of the things I love most is that I truly believe, you know, you've got five movies because Breaking Dawn is split into two.
Mm-hmm.
So you have all of this material that you can watch over and over again, and you're going to find like little things, but especially in that first movie, it's so quirky and camp. And so I still, even now, and it's been way more than 11 times that I've watched it now, even in theaters, um, I still find like things that I didn't notice before. And yeah, there's like Edward like throwing down the little baby carrot when he's like venting and upset at the lunch table. This one's like famous at this point and it inspires one of the recipes in the cookbook. But there's, Emmett's like Ziploc bag of like hard boiled eggs that he thinks like this is what humans, this is what they're bringing to lunch. This is normal, And then there's all the like bits of dialogue between like Eric and Mike in the movie version where they just sound like real teenagers. Like the things they're saying, I'm like, yeah, it makes no sense. It's super silly, but that feels very accurate to teenagers. And then there's things that like I don't even catch, but like my stepmom, she's a ICU nurse manager and she's every day she's at the hospital, right? And so at the end of the first movie, when, Bella's in the hospital, she's like, oh my gosh, they keep like flipping her oxygen tubes. And she every time we would watch it, she'd be like, that drives me bonkers. Like, and I never picked up on it because it wasn't something that I would have. But yeah, it was such a, day-to-day reality for her that it like stood out really, intensely. So that became like a funny family thing. But yeah, there's still things that I don't catch, but other people catch, and then I have to watch and see it. There's things that you can't really tell on screen, but like at least James is wearing these like feet socks that are meant to look like bare feet, but they're not his bare feet, like the actor's bare feet. And so I think you can see those feet sock shoe things at like the Twilight Museum in Forks. I think you could at some point. I'm pretty sure you still can, but I was just like, oh, like it was not something that I expected. So yeah, I do love going back and just like being able to notice all of these things.
Especially if you do it at the movie theaters. I think because the screen is so
Oh
big
yeah.
and that's all you're doing, you're mostly focusing on everything happening. Or it's like when you have the better chance of catching a lot of these things. I wasn't as lucky as you. I didn't watch it at the movie theaters. It was only Breaking Dawn Part 2, the one that I caught at the movie theater. But like, and when you're watching them at home, like you kind of get distracted a little bit and
Yeah.
then you start reading the articles and I'm like, wait, did that happen? I'm like, yep. I go put it on and yeah, that's what happened.
They come back in movie theaters often, so you'll still have a chance if you
Yeah.
want to.
I need to be better about that. Yeah. We just recently did it for Pride and Prejudice and also another movie that I had never
Yes.
seen in a movie theater. And it was a whole different experience. And I love that.
Oh, I love that.
Me too.
I need a second book. I literally had to mute my mic. I was laughing so hard as you were talking just now. I need a second book of you just describing what's happening in the movies as a viewer because I could listen to you talk about that all day. I was
Oh my gosh.
laughing
Thank
so
you.
hard. So good. And we love it. It doesn't detract from the movie at all. It makes it better. It's
No.
what
Makes it more
It's an
special.
enriching experience,
It is.
really.
it really
Exactly.
is.
It enhances kind of the fan experience and like the group quality because even if someone hasn't read the series or even if maybe like it's not even their favorite romance or whatever the case may be, no matter what, everyone can have fun and even in like a large group of people watching them. And I think that that is the really cool thing. Like you don't have to love vampire human werewolf human romances to have a good time, especially if you are someone who doesn't enjoy that, especially if you're with a group of people and especially if that group of people does love it, because then it just makes for a really cool, watching experience.
We're going to pause for a mic drop because that was a perfect explanation of what draws you to these books.
Thank you.
Okay, let's get into some questions about your book and about you as an author. I have a suspicion that I know the answer to this question, but we ask all of our guests, what would you say is the book that made you a reader?
Oh man. Well, it was Twilight, spoiler alert, but I had an affinity for reading before that. And when I was assigned like homework to read, I did really enjoy the series of Unfortunate Events book series. But I still was only reading it when like for class credit. But yes, I was like obsessed. Like I was like, oh my gosh, this is so mysterious. So that was kind of my first situation there. But in terms of reading, like becoming a reader and doing so for myself and for enjoyment, that started with Twilight. And it actually started still as homework initially because I had to do summer reading. It was the summer between, sixth and seventh grade for me. It was 2008. And my stepmom was like, oh, I've like heard good things about this book. I think you'll really like it. And what's actually really funny too is that like I think the summer prior, when I was on vacation with my mom, a family friend was trying to sell me on this book series as well. They're like, oh, like you should read Twilight. And I was like, huh? And I didn't really take it in. And then my stepmom actually got me the book. She was like, you have to do summer reading. Like, I think you're going to be into this. And so I was like, okay. And I started reading it. And the first chapter was like, all right. Like, now I love it. But at 12, I was just like, I don't understand. Like, why does she dislike the rain so much? Why does she dislike the forest? Because I love the rain. I love going to Lake Tahoe. So I love forest. So I was just like, I don't really vibe with that. And then I guess for me at 12, the final straw was like, why does she like this old truck? I don't understand that. Like, why is she so excited? I thought she was trying to make her dad feel better, but like, no, she really likes it. And so I was kind of dragging my feet a little bit, continuing. And then I saw the first trailer for the movie because it was going to be coming out that November. And I was like, oh, I messed up. I need to lock in. I need to do this. And so that is when I really committed to reading it. And once I really committed to it, like I was reading it so quickly. And then I was like, I was a nightmare. I was like, I need new moon because I read the like preview at the back of Twilight and it ends right at the point where she gets, pushed away after her paper cut. And then she's like bleeding even worse. And then it just says like five ravenous vampires like looked at me or something like that. And I was like, are they going to eat her? Like, I need to know. And so from there on, it was just like a race to the finish line for me. I had to keep going. And yeah, we saw the first movie the Wednesday before Thanksgiving in 2008. Um, and I was just like, okay, well, this is going to be my personality trait for the next several decades. And it was. So, but more than that, it also inspired me to want to chase that feeling again and again and again. And, it wasn't always an instantaneous connection like it was with that, but it certainly put the bug in my heart. And I got to read so many more series that I absolutely loved and still do. But I always do come back to Twilight at the end of the day because I am a chronic rereader. And it has the warmest place in my heart, truly.
It's interesting. Even as you were talking about that, I think a lot of people felt that way. Like the movies really spurred their desire to read the books. And I think what Twilight does really well is like it creates a whole universe. It's not just the
Yeah.
books, you also get the movies. And then we know like music is a huge part of Stephanie Meyer's writing process. So people
Oh,
could
yes.
revisit the playlist. Was that true for you, your experience of like writing to music for in the creation of this book? And if so, can you tell us what you were listening to?
Well, what I was listening to for this was without a doubt like the soundtracks for the films. I was too young and I was also like not an internet user really when I came to the series, at that time in 2008. So my connection to the music from the series has always been those official soundtracks and the the series is famous for their soundtracks. I mean, even people who are like, "Oh, Twilight," like they will still admit that the soundtracks are really good. And so, I have a really strong connection with it. I did my last dance to Flightless Bird. Like, I just adore the music from the films. And so, and it just pairs in my mind. Like, I don't think of Twilight without thinking of Decode and like all of these amazing songs. So, yeah, without a doubt, my playlist absolutely has been the soundtracks for the movies. They're just so good.
And they introduced it to so many like artists that I hadn't heard of, which is incredible. Like I still go back to those playlists and listen to it because they hold up really well.
They're so good. I mean, I walked down the aisle to another song from the soundtrack, um, Turning Point. So I walked down to the instrumental version of that. And then my mom actually like her song with my stepdad is A Thousand Years. It was like it's one of my strongest memories is actually going to see Breaking Dawn Part 2 with my stepdad. Because I went with everyone. My moms are both like best friends. It's so lovely. And so we all went and he is not like a movie person. Like he does watch movies, but like he's not someone who regularly goes and sees a bunch. And so he was not sure what he was going into. And like when we left the movie theater, he was like, that was like a scary vampire movie. And I was like, it was? Like he is just the sweetest man. And I was like, well, that is interesting. But it did have that fight scene to be fair.
The
So yeah.
unexpected fight scene for sure.
But that song became their song. And I just think that, like, it's so funny. Like, through my obsession, I
I love
helped,
that.
usher in this great song for them. No, but I think it's really cool. And I feel like a lot of people they want to have those songs at their weddings and or like at their prom because it's just like they're very romantic, but they still feel unique, which I think is really cool.
Yeah. And speaking of like caretakers, like your parents are incredible. And we kind of get this vibe from Bella too. She's like a natural, like, caretaker. Like,
Oh
she
yeah.
learned how to cook. I mean, she made amazing meals for Charlie, like steak and potatoes, lasagna, enchiladas. How did you think she learned how to cook? Because she didn't really have a strong, person around her that was kind of teaching her how to do this.
I think it's a little bit of a Matilda case, unfortunately. You know, I I don't think that Renee is many people, if any people's favorite character. I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who feels that way. I I love to bring as much empathy and understanding as I can, even to like fictional characters, but I do have a hard time with Renee. I love a free spirit. I love that. I love someone who's quirky, but we see very often that Bella was forced, really. I mean, she would say that she chose, but she couldn't have really chosen that. She was forced to take on really the parent role, both for herself and for Renee. And
Yes.
so Renee is not a good cook. We know this. So at a certain point, I'm sure Bella was like, I can't keep eating this. This isn't great. And so she must have, she is kind of like Matilda in that sense. Like, she loves to read, you know, she's definitely very smart, and she just has this way of like, all right, I'm not going to complain, I'm just going to take care of it. And she later becomes someone who like does the bills for the house, she does the dry cleaning, like she really runs the house. And so it's that preparation and that experience that when she goes to live with Charlie, she it's like, okay, let me, like, that's just her natural role, that's kind of where her head is at. And I love the bonding moments it does create for her and Charlie, because they're very similar and they're very like shy, and like it's hard for them to open up emotionally in general and to each other. And I think food is such a important um, thing for them time and time again. I mean, not just in the first book, but when Charlie is ungrounding Bella in Eclipse, he tries to make dinner and he doesn't do a good job, but he does take the initiative to try. And it's to have that important conversation and to for him to kind of make his case like, I want you to branch out. I want you to keep your friends in mind. And so for that reason, I love that. I love that about them. But it's also something that like I truly loved watching Edward learn how to cook for Bella, because no one's ever done that for her. And he is a vampire. I mean, he has every excuse in the world not to learn that skill. And he was like, oh no, I've been watching the Food Network. Like, that is so adorable, especially because when you read Midnight Sun, like, they find human food gross. They don't like the they don't like the texture. They don't like the smell. They're just kind of like, ugh. And so he really pushed through all of that because he was like, I need to figure this out. I want to cook for her. And I love that. I think that's so cute.
That's his love language, That's he wanted to
Yeah.
do things for her, which is adorable. And
Acts of service for sure.
exactly. And you kind of spoke about this. Like, Renee is kind of an interesting person in the book because,
Yeah.
she wasn't like a good cook or anything. But like, did you kind of keep in mind some of the recipes that you were developing in her honor for people that maybe like some of us that are not the best cooks, so we're trying to make it more accessible and easy, even for some of the Renees out there in the world?
So I definitely kept all of the Renee level cooks in mind. I am a home cook. I'm not a chef, and I've certainly had my Renee moments. I once like totally burned a turkey burger on the stovetop in college. I'm sure my roommates loved that. Um, but there are plenty of recipes in this book that are simple in terms of the ingredients list, and they don't even take that long. And there is actually a Renee inspired recipe. So the tropical fruit salad is inspired by Bella's visit with Renee in Florida. And this is one, it's really delicious, but it's very simple. So if you're looking for something that's like quick and fun, and you're gonna watch Eclipse, that's like a fun thing to do. But yeah, I that's also one of the few moments where I was like, oh yeah, cool, Renee. Like she actually seemed observant of things other than herself. She was really studying Edward and Bella, and she was at least trying to have that kind of upfront, honest conversation about the intensity of their relationship. But then, Bella distracted her, and she's Renee, so she was like, oh, okay. And she just, she forgot all about it. But yes, that one is both easy enough for Renee, and it is one of her better moments that inspired it.
It's so redeeming. It's like a little justice for Renee that she's getting
A
better.
little
So
bit,
I love
yes.
that.
Justice for Bella for
But
being the
actually,
parentified
yes,
Yeah.
that's
child.
better.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah.
agreed. Uh, and you kind of touched on this. So you are, you know that the Collins call themselves the vegetarians of the vampire world because they would only consume like deers or small lions. Did you play around with some gamey meat, kind of trying to develop some of these recipes? And then I think you kind of touched on this, but how did you balance trying to bring some of those elements or vibes into some of the recipes if that didn't make it into the book?
So the way that we kind of were thinking of the Cullens and vegetarian and all of that is sort of applying that but to the human lens, just because like they think of themselves as the vampire version of a human vegetarian. And so we do have the vegetarian vampire like tofu tacos, which just feels like, because you have to feel like them. It has to feel like you're making that choice. And so that we felt like was a really fun way to play with that, especially because and sometimes my brain mixes the books and the movies up, but I know for a fact in the movies that Edward says it's like a human only living off of tofu. And so that is like a direct nod. And we were like, we have to do something with that, both because it's so on theme, but also because we want alternatives and we want options for all fans to have. And so, yeah, there are plenty of recipes in this book that are vegetarian, could be vegan. Like, there's ways to play with it so that everyone in your watch party, everyone who is, getting this can participate and still have a lot of fun. But that was like a really like funny way to nod to the Cullens and their special diet that the rest of the vampire world is confused by, but we love.
I love that. And yeah, like it's not like, okay, I'm gonna go hunting now for deer, but it's just like we're just doing a nice little nod to them and kind of how it feels,
Yeah,
which is a really great way of kind of envisioning what their experience is and bringing it over to us mere humans. I love that.
exactly.
There are also a couple of like bloody recipes that I was super
Oh yeah.
into. I know your pancakes recipe with the strawberries and the pickled beets. There were a few nods in there to their not so vegetarian habits that really made it like super satisfying, and
You
weirdly
can't
like
have
delicious. Like,
you can't have a vampire cookbook without some blood.
yeah.
And although the Cullens are very conscious, when it comes to their diet, we meet many vampires in the series who are not. Uh, and then, even our beloved Cullens, there's some pasts there. Edward had his vigilante phase, which like I don't fault him for, but there was that. And then all of them, with the exception of Rosalie and Carlisle, have had accidents. They've had slip ups. Rosalie is not without her victim list, but that was a purposeful choice on her part, and she didn't drink any of their blood. So she has a clean record when it comes to human blood consumption. And then Carlisle, of course, our angel, he would never. So he is squarely 100% in the always vegetarian vampire spot. But yeah, we've got the nomads, we've got, Victoria and James and Laurent. And then we have the Volturi, and they bring it to a whole new level. So, and then of course our Bella, who, my goodness, she is just constantly tripping or hurting herself or getting hunted, and so her blood is all over the series. And that's like her birthday cake. We had to get that blood representation in there too, because my goodness, it was a pink and bloody catastrophe.
It really was. And I'm so glad that you included that. I was wondering if you maybe potentially were thinking of discussing having two different cakes because, we have the birthday cake that for the party that I threw, and then we have the wedding cake, which was also like a weird situation because Bella was so surprised that Edward swallowed it because we know that they don't
Yes.
digest food. So I was wondering, like, did you have to make a decision to see which one you would choose, and or how was that process on kind of deciding that?
Well, we wanted to incorporate both. And so we have the cake option because, like, you're having a Twilight birthday party. What
Yeah.
better way to incorporate it? But we also have the wedding cupcakes. And that was such a fun way to still incorporate it. But, like, that's like something you could still serve that at a wedding if you wanted to. But it's also like a perfect party situation. Um, and at the same time, it gets a little bloody there too because, you know, Bella has that nightmare and it's right before the wedding, and my goodness, there was a lot of beautiful white roses, and her dress in the dream was beautiful and white, but there was a lot of red. There was a lot of blood. So this was like a fun way to incorporate both the actual wedding but also the nightmare wedding that she has. And it's a fun way to kick off Breaking Dawn Part One because things just they rev up and then they keep going all the way through Part One and Part Two in the movies and throughout the entire book. So that was definitely a fun one.
Yeah. It's one of like those moments that for whatever reason it stuck with me from the book and from the movie. Like it was just like, oh yeah, I guess he's just gonna have the food stuck in his stomach forever. So as you're kind of creating the recipe, it has to be something delicious and conscious that you just kind of want to keep with you for a long time.
I I hate to say this because we're talking about delicious things, but in Midnight Sun, Edward reveals how they deal with that food, and it's not in there forever. They will remove
Mm,
it out the
comes up.
entrance. Yeah, it
Spelling,
comes
Mm,
up.
mm,
spelling, yes.
yeah.
The only exception is the teardrop that Edward collects from Bella when she's crying in Twilight. In Twilight, she says that it kind of looks like he put it to his mouth, but she doesn't really, you know for sure. And in Midnight Sun, he reveals that he ate it, I guess is the best way to phrase it, because he knows his body will never absorb it, and so it's a way of keeping a piece of her forever in his mind. And we actually referenced that scene also with the teardrop cookies because people have a lot of feelings about that scene. I understand why some people would be like, "What?" But I'm a hopeless romantic, and I think there's something beautiful about the idea of him wanting that piece of her forever, and especially because he can't cry. So that's something he gets to keep safe, I guess.
Guess treasure in a way.
Yeah.
Let's keep an open mind. Let's be positive about it.
Yes, let's be open-minded.
I personally love it and find it super romantic. I also find the cake romantic. I think food is love. And even though we're
I
talking
agree.
about like all of these bloody things, all of the recipes are very beautiful and made with love. And you can tell that it's a sign.
I mean, it's my love for this series that made me feel so strongly that this is something that people would want and would have so much fun doing. I think that there's just something about entering your favorite fandom and, trying to immerse yourself even further. You read the books, you watch the movies, you listen to the soundtracks. If there is a theme park, you go to the theme park. Um, and thinking about that, just bringing another layer to it, being able to have, in many cases, things that are literally in the books and the movies and have that connection point, but also just being able to laugh, being able to make one of these recipes that's inspired by an inside joke in the fandom. It's just another way of connecting, like with your friends, but also with people who just love Twilight. I mean, there's so many groups online. I have made so many friends in the Twilight fandom space online who I'd never have the opportunity to meet if it weren't for Twilight and loving Twilight. And I think that food is such a fun way to celebrate that. Even if you're doing a virtual party, even if you're, meeting up for the first time, like these are really cool, fun ways to connect with the fandom, like community, but also with the series that inspired it all.
I love that. One of the things that we are obsessed with on this podcast and the reason that we love books is the community that they create. And it's such a perfect tie out to create a cookbook because eating is another way that people create community and build relationships. And you found this like perfect cross section between the two things.
I think that Bella shows throughout the series how powerful food really can be in her relationships. Um, and I think that the surprise that I felt initially when I was really going through finding all of the food that is actually in the series, I was like, I shouldn't be surprised though. Like, this is something that is so important to her and Charlie's relationship. It's so important too to like Edward understanding Bella as a human and like trying to remember meal times and trying to remember like her eating schedule and committing to that because he felt how important that was. And, yeah, we're going to go to this restaurant and I'm not going to eat, but I want you to get what you want. I want you to get the mushroom ravioli, I want you to I want you to enjoy that. I'm going to make you as many eggs and omelets on our honeymoon as you want. And for Bella to be able to sit with her dad and she might not be able to tell him, "Hey, I I want to be here with you. I want to spend this time together." But she can spend a really long time making her grandmother's stroganoff recipe or making Harry Clearwater's fish fry and saying, like, I know this is important to you. And she said, like, the stroganoff wasn't her favorite, but she knew Charlie loved it. So it's like, I know these things about you and I can't really say it, but I can show it to you and we can at least for this moment in time sit together and enjoy this together. And I think that's just so beautiful. And of course, there's so many silly moments in this cookbook, but the silly moments matter too. And it was just, there's a lot of love in this series in a lot of different ways. I am Team Edward, but I do have a lot of love and appreciation for Jacob, especially him and Bella's like best friendship. Like, there's something so beautiful there. And they share a lot of food moments too, which is awesome. Like that bonfire that Bella goes to, that moment where she's able to sit with Jacob and his family and his friends, the wolf pack, and like hear these stories that are so important for them. That is beautiful too. So there's several moments. And then I just think about my own fun times that I've had doing themed things and hanging out with my friends. And for the birthday party, like it was so much fun coming up with these things, not just because it was a theme, but because I couldn't wait to see my friends and family's reaction. And like, I knew these were going to be moments that they would recognize, mostly because I forced them to go see it at least 11 times now. But also because this is something that we genuinely have fun with together, and this was such a fun way to be like, look, I thought about that, and isn't this such a fun moment? And yeah, I think that food brings us together. Food makes us laugh when we can come up with silly things around it, but it also makes us feel thought of, and it gives us the opportunity to give of ourselves to our people, which I'm a very overly sentimental person, so that's probably more than you asked for, but it's true.
Are you
like,
kidding?
That's how I feel.
I'm holding back tears in my eyes.
Oh.
Well,
I'm taking notes. I'm like, this is so true.
Oh, thank you.
I mean, I think with that, like, what else is there to say? I just firstly want to tell everyone, go out and find the Unofficial Twilight Saga Cookbook. It is beautiful. The recipes are approachable but fun, and truly do have such a wonderful relationship to all of the moments in the book that us readers feel most strongly about. Kayla, thank you so much for joining us. Tell everyone where they can find you and anything else that you'd like to plug in the show.
Amazing. So, thank you both so much. This was so fun. I absolutely loved it. And yes, you can find me on TikTok. Um, my username is Kayla underscore loves, but LUVS underscore sparkly underscore vamps.
Love.
Gotta be on brand, you know?
Exactly.
And then slightly more professional on Instagram, I am Kayla underscore Ruhland underscore 1996. So yeah, that is where you can find me. I am posting content from the cookbook, but I also just post general Twilight content for fun because, yeah, no matter what, it's going to be my bread and butter and my passion. And that is, I just have a lot of fun making silly videos about it.
Don't we all, though? I feel like just kind of being part of a community that you just love and enjoy. You get to meet your friends, you get to do the things that you like. So here we are with this beautiful cookbook to kind of honor that.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming on to the show. It was so fun chatting with you. And thank you for listening to Literally Books, the podcast.
Where we say what we read.
And we mean what we say. Bye.